Ms. Sembo, will you call the roll?
Mr. Brown?
Here.
Mr. Kuzic?
Present.
Mr. Giovanni?
Present.
Mr. Gofredo?
Here.
Mr. Heckman?
Here.
Mr. Lott?
Present.
Mr. Myers?
Here.
Ms. Fargo Hefner?
Here.
Ms. Zirinsky?
Here.
All present with Mr. Brown by phone.
Right. Is there anyone that wishes to speak to courtesy of the floor and address council?
I do, ma'am. Lamont McClure, next door. Today, with your reorganization, what a happy and wonderful time it is. Having been through many of them myself, I know how exciting it can be. But I thought that, Mr. Cusick laughs, I thought that it important to raise this issue as we begin a new year. And what we've been through together over these last 5 years, 4 no tax increase budgets, 1 budget where we actually cut taxes, led our county through a 100-year pandemic where we worked together to create the plan to save small business in the Lehigh Valley, and specifically in Northampton County, where we have preserved more parks and open space in the last 5 years than in any other 5-year period in the history of the county. This is a record of accomplishment that should keep moving forward into the future. However, I see some signs that we may not be able to create and keep that historic momentum going forward. Specifically, on November 11th, a resolution seeking approval for the Partnership Health Center was hand-delivered to the Clerk of County Council and by Mr. Steve Barron, Director of Fiscal Affairs. That resolution was not placed on the Finance Committee agenda on the 16th or the full council agenda for the 17th because we were told by the clerk, Mr. Barron was told that the agenda was too full and that Lori would not be including that resolution on the agenda. That's a quote. So that's problematic in and of itself because you have no rules. The only formal rules that County Council has is the Code of Civility, which is why I behave myself when I'm standing here. You have no other formal rules of adoption. And the powers of the presidency are limited to what is in the charter. And let me read to you what those powers are. B, presiding officer. The president shall preside at all meetings of the county council at which he is present. We should probably change that language.
Can you tell us what page you're in?
Sure. Page 10 of the Northampton County Home Rule Charter. The president shall preside at all meetings of the county council at which he is present. In the event of the absence or incapacity of the president, the vice president shall perform the functions of the president. That's it. That's it. Now, with respect to the powers of the county executive, on page 12 of the Home Rule Charter, under section 302, subsection 3, present to the county council from time to time such information concerning the business and affairs of the county as he may deem necessary, or as the county council by resolution may request, and to recommend, and this is the important one, it's a comma, and to recommend such measures for legislative action as may be in the best interest of the county. What that means, in our interpretation, is that if we propose a resolution, irrespective of what you do with it, eventually it needs to make its way to an agenda. And today, to this day, that resolution has not made its way to the agenda. So what I want to talk a little bit about before I sit down is consent. Because you don't have rules, because the charter is as limiting as it is when it comes to telling us how we should operate, we do so much on consent, on agreement. Executives don't make council vote every time on a resolution to have a committee meeting and on what those agenda items should be. We do that by consent, although this charter says, theoretically, we could make you do it by resolution each time on every issue. And since you only meet every other week, that would not be efficient or good administration of justice. And neither is it good or efficient administration of government to not put our proposed resolutions on the agenda. Thank you.
Is there anybody else that wishes to speak to courtesy of the floor? Thank you. Next, we have selection of county council officers. Would someone please make a motion to nominate a candidate for president of county council? Mr. Lott.
Yes, I would like to nominate Tara Zirinsky for president. I believe she was the highest vote getter in the last election. I believe it would be the will of the voters if we would do this. She is the only person on council that has been on her second term that has not served as president or vice president. You may not agree with Tara, but most people will agree that she's very hardworking at her position. So I place her name in nomination for president of this council.
Thank you. Is there a second to the nomination? Is there a second to the nomination? Is there a second to the nomination?
Second my own nomination.
Pardon me?
I don't think it would be fair to second my own nomination.
You can if you want to.
I'll second it then.
Okay, there's a second to the nomination. Are there any other nominations for president of council?
Yes. I'd like to nominate Kerry Myers.
Is there a second? Is there a second?
I'll second myself.
Are there any other nominations for president of county council? Are there any other nominations for president of county council? Mr. Gafredo?
I'd like to nominate John Cusick, considering it's supposedly being his last term in council.
Is there a second to that nomination? Is there a second to that nomination?
I will second that. I will second that, John Brown.
Okay. Are there any other nominations for president? Are there any other nominations for president? Are there any other nominations for
Nominate.
president?
Yes. Lori, I'll nominate Lori Hefner.
I decline, but thank you very much. Are there any other nominations for president? Nominations are now closed. Since we have more than one nomination, we have to have the members name their choice. Ms. Semple, will you call?
Mr. Giovanni.
John Kutzik.
Mr. Gofredo.
John Cusick.
Mr. Heckman.
Mr. Myers.
Mr. Lott.
Ms. Zirinsky.
Mr. Myers.
Kerry Myers.
Ms. Fargo Hefner.
Carrie Myers.
Ms. Zirinsky.
I'll vote for Carrie Myers.
Carrie Myers.
Mr. Brown.
John Cusick.
Mr. Kuzic.
I'll abstain.
Mr. Myers is elected president by a vote of 4 to 3 to 1 to 1 abstention.
Thank you. Wait, Mr. Solicitor's going to check.
You do need 5.
You need 5. I think you need 5. You need 5.
You might be here all night. Let me check it with the resolution side. See if we need 5.
Do you want to read what was it, 4 to 4? Can we
You can
just
change
revote?
your vote.
Yeah, we're going to have a revote, so.
We have to have a president.
If I could change my vote yet, or is it too late to do that? Okay.
We may not. Because I don't think the whole charter says anything about majority.
Well, it's either a quorum or a majority. I don't know, I haven't checked that part.
Silent.
It's, like most things, it's silent. I think it's a simple majority, but I could be wrong. I don't know, I'm trying to think back on some of the.
We need a revote.
Well, it failed because we did not have 5 members voting for a president.
I will withdraw my nomination. Can I do that?
Just vote again.
And we'll vote again.
All right, call the
Okay.
names, yeah, I agree.
Second round.
Mr. Lot,
Mr. Myers.
Mr. Myers. Ms. Fargo Hefner,
Mr. Myers.
Ms. Zirinsky,
Mr. Myers.
Mr. Brown,
John Cusick.
Mr. Kuzic,
I'll abstain.
Mr. Giovanni. Mr. Gofredo,
John Cusick.
Mr. Heckman.
Mr. Myers.
That's 5. There you go.
Mr. Myers is now president by a vote of 5 to 3 to 1 abstention.
Congratulations.
Thank you. Next, can we have someone make a motion to nominate a candidate for vice president? Mr. Myers,
Mr. Heckman?
is there a second?
I'll second.
Is there any other nomination? Mr. Lot?
Ms. Zirinsky, for the same prior reasons, highest vote getter, served 2 terms without ever serving on president or vice president. I think she deserves that opportunity. Thank you.
Thank you. Is there a second? Is there a second?
I'll second.
Are there any other nominations for vice president of county council?
I'll nominate John Cusick.
Is there a second? Okay. Any other nominations for vice president of county council? Nominations are closed. Call for the vote.
Mr. Gofredo,
John Cusick.
Mr. Heckman,
Heckman.
Mr. Lot,
Zirinsky.
Mr. Myers,
Heckman?
Fargo Hefner,
Come back to me.
Ms. Zirinsky,
Zirinsky.
Mr. Brown,
Cusick.
Mr. Kuzic,
I'll vote for Mr. Heckman.
Mr. Giovanni,
Mr. Kusick?
Ms. Fargo Hefner,
Mr. Heckman.
Mr. Heckman is vice pres, oh wait, we don't have 5.
Do 5.
No.
Gotta vote the second round.
Round 2.
Mr. Myers,
Heckman?
Ms. Fargo Hefner,
Mr. Heckman.
Ms. Zirinsky,
Zirinsky.
Mr. Brown,
Cusick.
Mr. Kuzic,
Mr. Heckman.
Mr. Giovanni, Mr. Gofredo,
Mr. Heckman.
Mr. Heckman,
Heckman.
Mr. Lot,
Yeah.
Ms. Zirinsky.
Okay, we have Mr. Heckman being vice president by a vote of 6 to 2 for Ms. Zirinsky and 1 for Mr. Kuzic.
Thank you. And last, we have the consideration of the position of solicitor to Northampton County Council. Do we have any nominations?
Let's make a motion, we retain Chris Spadoni.
Do I have a second? Second. Do I have any other nominations? Call for the vote.
Mr. Heckman,
Yes. Is that, I mean, he's only
Yes,
one.
no vote.
Yes.
Mr. Lot,
Yes.
Mr. Myers.
Yes.
Ms. Fargo Hefner.
Yes.
Ms. Zirinsky.
Yes.
Mr. Brown,
Yes.
Mr. Kuzic,
Yes.
Mr. Giovanni.
Yes.
Mr. Gofredo.
Yes.
Mr. Spadoni has been retained as solicitor.
Thank you.
I have a
Or
question.
like the kids are doing these days.
When you're ready. Oh. Looking at the charter, I know it's vague in certain areas. We do and I read, you have to approve the solicitor. And I don't, we've been back and forth on this over the years. Do we have to reappoint every year the clerk of council? Okay, that's all I wanted to know. Thank you. I just wanted a clear answer. I never asked a solicitor that. Fair enough, that's pretty clear.
Okay. Any other questions? Motion to adjourn?
No, I'm sorry, once again, if I may. You all received, I received a response to questions I sent to Affinity on some of the healthcare issues. So I just got it today, and Lynn, they were gracious enough to copy it for me. So you're going to get it, I think, in email, but she made copies, so you'd be sure to have them today. And, you can peruse that if you wish. I also just sent some questions to Mr. Barron, so, we'll see, get those. That's all I had. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
May I raise an issue?
Yes.
As much as we may have loved Studio 54, could we have somebody look at these lights? Because,
I think we're just going to
We're-
turn them off. The
okay.
inside lights. I don't think we need them.
because,
No one needs a spotlight on your sharp head.
Thank you, John. I every now and then I'm looking up and I'm worried I'm having a stroke or are the lights having, so, yeah, they've been blinking for a bit, so.
It's like somebody.
Can I have a motion to adjourn, please?
Motion.
Second?
Second,
All in favor?
yes.
Thank you.